behind this fraud. That's why Advocate Thierry Motau, who investigated this matter, produced a report and titled it The Great Bank Heist. Because it was a heist. 1.8 billion rand or so was stolen in just 18 months. And that was done through fraudulent transaction. I know, it sounds like a movie. What was the money used for that was stolen, you may ask? Well, to fund the fancy lifestyle of those who were stealing it. Prominent people were showered with gifts. The bank's executives flew in helicopters. They were driving expensive cars. They were shopping at exclusive boutiques. And you know what the chair of the bank said as he pleaded guilty yesterday? He said, and I quote, "My desperation to be counted among the so-called big dogs is what led to my downfall, end quote. So the need to fund a materialistic lifestyle, to amass wealth, to be part of the big dogs, whatever that is what led to his downfall. But he's not the only one. The investigation by Advocate Thierry Motau found that not only the bank's executives, but high-profile politicians associated with the EFF, the ANC, even auditing firm KPMG, and the Venda King. What that report said is that they all benefited from the looting of the bank. Some of those implicated have since denied any wrongdoing or any claim that they have benefited from the VBS loot. Here's a reminder of Advocate Thierry Motau explaining how even municipalities were duped into making deposits into the bank against the law, because politicians who were putting pressure on these municipalities were receiving bribes in return.
The report lists how the scheme operated, which is duping municipalities into making deposits in return for an incentive in the form of bribes. So there are various municipal officials, some of whom have been named in the report, who are beneficiaries in the scheme. So in other words, when there is clear legislation against municipalities investing in a mutual bank, people disregarded the National Treasury's directive because they had a self-interest, because since they stood to benefit through the illicit bribes that were given. Yeah. And that's the only reason why municipalities disregarded a clear directive. I mean, the legislation is quite clear on this issue. And one understands the incentive that justifies or explains the total disregard of what National Treasury had clearly articulated.
8 municipalities just in Limpopo, in that province, collectively deposited about 1.2 billion rand with VBS Bank illegally. And that led to several municipalities even struggling to pay salaries. Some were even failing to deliver services. And yes, the Premier at the time, Stan Mathabata, announced the suspension of municipal managers and even some of the chief financial officers in several municipalities. But what about politicians? What about politicians who are putting pressure on these accounting officers? Some of them have continued with their lives. They continue to hold prominent positions in government. And that is the state of affairs of our politics. That's a state of affairs of our society. No sense of accountability, just greed. And they forget about the people who have lost money through this bank heist. And that's the people they claim to represent. That's the people they claim to care about. That's the people whose kids they go around kissing during election campaigning. The people they promise heaven and earth when they campaign for elections. Those are the people they have betrayed, these victims.
This really hurt us and our children. The money that I saved was for taking my children to university.
I
am not happy with the sentencing that they gave Chifiwa Matodzi. Many people lost their lives because of all the money they stole from us. They should increase the years. The bank was our future, and now it is all history.
These are the people that lost their money because of greedy executives of the bank and politicians who helped them in their greed and their fraud and their corruption. The question we're asking you tonight is, one, what are your thoughts on the imprisonment of these key figures in the VBS scandal? Are you happy with the punishment given to the ex-officials of the bank? Or do you believe that politicians involved should also face consequences? Or do you think it's sufficient that the individuals in leadership positions at the bank are held accountable? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 078 459 1897. Remember to tell us your name and surname and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds or send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. After the break, we'll speak to the Hawks head, Aubrey Libia. Chifiwa Matodza has now been sentenced to 15 years, but there are many others that are facing similar charges. Will they also end up in jail? Stay with us. Welcome back. The pre-trial hearing of the defunct VBS Mutual Bank matter will start on the 22nd of this month in the High Court in Pretoria. This comes after the High Court sentenced former board chairperson Chifiwa Matodzi to 15 years in prison for multiple counts of racketeering, theft, fraud and money laundering. Matodzi entered into a plea agreement with the NPA. Now, the head of the Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigation, that's the Hawks, Godfrey Libia, is facing the nation tonight and joins us now via Teams. Thank you so much, Lieutenant General, for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Mr. Manyatela, and good evening to your viewers.
I imagine yesterday's guilty plea and sentencing of this man at the center of this VBS scandal is quite a significant move for the Hawks as the organization that's been investigating. What did you make of it? Did you get this man to finally plead guilty? What did it take for that?
I think that the investigation team has been working very hard on this matter. Obviously, it takes time to reach this stage where we are now. We have to be engaging, and this is not a ordinary individual because he was at a senior position in the bank. So you can imagine that it is somebody who is knowledgeable about the system and the like. Without divulging much, but we are happy. And I think that while I may have heard some of the victims asking for heavier sentences, but collectively, I think that the sentence of 495 years is heavy. It's just that they run concurrently such that one will serve 15 years. But I think that looking at the collective number of years, one believes that justice has been served on this one.
Yeah.
It is not the end of the story. As we shall have indicated in the past when we were making media brief informing the nation, we have indicated that so far we have arrested 33 individuals that whose cases are pending before the various courts in the country. And over and above, we said that there are still other 43 that we are working on. And one is happy to see the nature of the work that the investigation team is producing.
Yeah.
And we have indicated that among the work that they are doing is to record more than 2,900 statements. Just last week, I was observing one of the statements that they just finalized. You know, the statement is more than 60 pages of an affidavit, and it takes a week to complete this affidavit. That is how complicated some of these matters are.
Yeah.
But one is compatible with the way in which the team is dealing with the case.
I mean, this man said in court yesterday that he was involved in this criminal enterprise because he wanted to be part of, quote unquote, the big dogs. He wanted to fund his fancy lifestyle. Was he cooperating with investigations, or did he try deny in the beginning? Because I imagine you followed the money. How were you able to pin him down?
Yeah, I think that obviously without revealing the way in which we do the investigation, one can say that there is cooperation. And when people plead guilty, there is also some remorse that they are telling the court that they feel that they were guilty, they should not have done what they did. It is not the end of the story. Some of the things that we may not have known during the initial report that was produced by the advocate, we may now be knowing.
Yeah.
So I think that it helps us, because if you have got some of those who were within, whose cases are being disposed of, then the remaining one who are outside, I think it becomes easier.
Yeah. So has this man shared valuable information about other people who were involved, which may help the Hawks in their further investigations?
Yeah, the official has been cooperating very well. And then I think that we have to leave it at that stage. But you just take that it is somebody else who has been cooperating with us. It is somebody who decided that he is pleading guilty for his part. You know, in pleading guilty to the crimes that you have committed, there is a need for some sort of explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And those type of explanations are the ones that help us to decide as to whether we can go further to identify some of the things that we didn't know.
Yeah. Are there politicians, Lieutenant General, who will also face some music? Because there have been reports of how money flowed from VBS to companies like Vele Investment, which was chaired by Modjadji, and then flowed to companies that are linked to some politicians. And people watching at home are wondering, okay, sure, we get the former executives are being prosecuted, but what about the politicians who are putting pressure and they were helping them in this criminal enterprise?
All right. Obviously, one has to be understanding what we mean by politicians. And then I think that among the people that we might be calling them politicians include those who are voted to the positions of mayor. And if that means that in politician we include those, one example is the matter of Julia Matebe, who was a mayor. And the case of that madam is postponed to the 21st of July 2025 up to the 1st of August 2025. That is next year. You see that the matters are postponed a year before. So it also talks to the court rolls, how busy are our court rolls. But it is not the only person that we shall be visiting, and it is not the only mayor that we shall have visited in the 33 that I have mentioned. So if there is anyone, regardless of their political affiliation or ordinary business people or ordinary official in the municipalities that have had their hands in the jar, rest assured that they will be visited.
Yeah. It's great that the kingpin has now been successfully prosecuted, but what does this mean then for the poor people in and around Venda who invested their money in VBS? Are they going to get their money back from what you've uncovered in the investigations?
Yeah, you see, normally what we do, there is a criminal side of this conduct, and there is civil side of the very same conduct. And some of the banks are dealing with the issue of refunding and paying back those that shall have suffered. But the Reserve Bank will be in a position to deal with that aspect. But where the asset forfeiture unit will become relevant, they will also deal with that. But let me not venture in the area of the civil part of recovery of what has been lost. When the sentencing comes, where it becomes necessary, the presiding official can order in terms of Section 300 to ensure that whatever the person, the individual has benefited can be paid back to the victim. But this thing has also been handled by the banking environment who will understand better what is that which they are doing in terms of administration of the funds that remains.
Okay. Let me use this opportunity, Lieutenant General, to also ask about the 300 million rand that the Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Dean McPherson, says has been stolen through cyber crimes over the last 10 years. Are you investigating this as the Hawks? How advanced is your investigation?
Obviously, the matter has just been recently reported. Our cybercrime unit is working on this. I have seen a report where they indicate what they are doing and what they have already done. But as the matter is at the initial stage, it is better to leave it at that, just to confirm that the Hawks is handling the matter.
Okay, so it was only reported to you recently, even though the minister says this has been happening for over 10 years now.
Yeah, I think that maybe the matter that we are seized with has been reported recently.
Okay. Thank you so much for making time for us. Head of the Hawks, Godfrey Libya, really appreciate your time on Face the Nation tonight. When we come back, we will speak to one of the victims of this VBS looting. Also look at what other people have proposed, that let's turn this into a commercial bank. How far advanced are those conversations? That's what's coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The question we've been asking you tonight is on what happened in court yesterday, the imprisonment of the former chairperson of the VBS Bank. Are you satisfied with the imprisonment of some of these ex-officials at the bank? Are you happy with the punishment given to the ex-officials, or do you believe that politicians involved should also face consequences? Let's look at some of the tweets that have come through so far. Siabulela says, good evening, Clement, and to your viewers. It's a step in the right direction. We need everyone involved to be brought to book, especially the highly connected. Our justice system has been accused of being toothless and compromised. They have a chance to bring us into their confidence. Leslie says, as a South African, I think that also the politicians must face the consequences of their actions. They must all be in jail for a long time. Dabocho says, all individual people implicated must also face the consequences. Neto says, good evening, Clement and the viewers. These people steal millions of rands and then they end up paying a couple of thousands in bail. There is no actual justice. That's why we are where we are now. Now, before the VBS Bank collapse, it was a vehicle for development within the vendor nation and for surrounding communities. So to continue this VBS discussion, we're focusing on the show today. I've got Chief Libuwani Matsila, who is joining us in studio today. Thank you so much for making time for us, Chief Matsila. Really appreciate it. Good evening.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Let me first get your reaction on the sentencing of Chifiwa Modjadji yesterday in court.
No, we received the news of his sentencing with mixed feelings. Very disappointed and embarrassed as a nation of the Venda people, being known for development and caring for our own communities. And as it happens like that, we tend to also appreciate his honesty and sincerity in admitting that he robbed his own people and defrauded them and conducted criminal activities to benefit himself and his friends. So we think that the showing of the remorse and cooperating with the law enforcement agencies brings in a new chapter in the whole saga of the corruption in the VBS scandal. And in that sense, we will wish to commend the Hawks for the sterling work they have done so far, and also the NPA for actually securing this kind of conviction. Because without the truth that is now coming out, it's very impossible for our people to heal and the victims to actually understand what really happened. Now, this admission of guilt comes a little bit too late. Had it been earlier, I think we'll be far now in terms of uncovering the truth and discovering actually what happened.
Speaking of the victims, how have they been doing? How have they been affected by this?
It's depression throughout the communities, massive depression. Some people have actually passed away without knowing the truth. Knowing the truth is something else. They've actually also passed away without having received or recovered their money. And part of the major issue for us has been, when is the money going to be recovered and paid back into the bank accounts
They're still waiting.
of the victims? They're still waiting, and the communication has not been very good by those who are responsible, either the curator or the Reserve Bank or the government or the law enforcement agencies. So the law enforcement part is one issue. Then there's the issue of the society that is depressed and not knowing when and how much to receive and whether they will actually receive whatever they've lost at this point in time.
Yeah. You once wrote to the Reserve Bank seeking to have the VBS Mutual Bank revived. Where are you with that proposal?
No, we went to write to the Reserve Bank at the request of the shareholders of the VBS bank. There's a core group who would be the original investors and shareholders in the bank, who, when all this was happening, were kept in the dark until when there was no money left. So they wrote to us as the Matsila Royal family to say, can you help us reach out to the Reserve Bank to get information firstly? When are we getting all the monies? Because there was no communication at all, especially from the curator or the liquidator. And then secondly, what are the chances of reviving the bank? So when we wrote, we got a very good response from the Reserve Bank, from the governor himself, Mr. Khanyaho and his team. They actually made a thorough presentation on different modalities in terms of what kind of banking facilities we could have, the mutual bank versus a commercial bank. And the idea of a commercial bank became attractive because it offered more benefits to the community, in the sense that you will have a commercial bank that is owned by the community, which is an advancement from a mutual bank. Now you see the mutual bank is in between the Stokvels and the commercial bank.
Yeah.
So it will be an advancement from where
Would you need a banking license for that?
You need a banking license. So they took us through the criteria that are required, particularly the capacity of the people that must actually run the bank, and the amounts of investments that will be needed as a deposit into that. We thought that was all achievable. But however, facilitating the discussion between the original owners of the bank and the Reserve Bank, once they met, we thought that they would be going forward to achieve that kind of dream which they thought they would achieve. So we kind of left it at that, knowing that if there are further difficulties, we'll be informed.
Yeah.
So as it is, the complication is that you want to open the bank, but at the same time, you have not recovered the monies that must be received by the victims.
Yeah. Sure. And the victims are those that are still alive, are just waiting to see if the money is going to be recovered and if they will get their monies back. So what about the politicians that have been involved, Chief Matsila? Because that's a question that some of the victims are asking. Yes, they appreciate that the former executives are being held accountable, but there are also senior politicians who have been linked to this criminal enterprise, some of whom have been putting pressure on municipalities to deposit money to the bank when it was even illegal to do so.
Yeah, at that time of the whole debacle as it would unfold, we engaged the African National Congress at the level of the top 6 then, and we appealed that those who are involved or implicated in the whole situation of corruption and greed in this case should step aside. It was a very difficult discussion. At that time, I think Esma Kashule was still the Secretary General.
Yeah.
Then we had that session where we said that, look, if nothing happens, we will not be able to vote for the ANC as communities in that particular area and region. And it ended up with some of those implicated stepping aside.
Only to be reinstated later.
Later in one form or the other, because then there are certain issues of whether you are criminally charged or not, and those kinds. We accept that you are not guilty until proven otherwise. So we had that kind of a very broad, discussion and very gruesome experience of discussing with our own leaders what should then actually happen in there. So then what is then happening now as the wheel of justice is turning, albeit slowly, is that you saw General Libya talking about 23 of, can't remember, the 33 cases or so, arrests are being made. We appreciate all of that. So we seem to see momentum, but the pace is very, very slow. And now, when we say the pace is slow, we appreciate that people like Chief Modjadji are now beginning to bring evidence. That could mean that this case can come to a fruitful conclusion sooner than later.
Well, let's hope it will. There are so many people out there who have invested their hard-earned money. There are pensioners who say, I had my last 20,000 rand and I put it in this bank because they had so much hope in that enterprise and they have been left dry. So let's hope not only are we going to see accountability, but there will be some monies that are paid back and some monies recovered and sent back to these victims.
That's the main issue. And the painful part is that this money is not earned over weeks or years, over decades. And part of it is inheritance for families. Some of it is meant for people to go to school. Some of it is meant to look after the elderly and investment into agriculture and other entrepreneurial sectors. So I think that is a terrible mistake and corruption of grand scale that is not acceptable in society.
Yeah. Well, Chief Lebohani Matsila, thank you so much for speaking to us here in studio. Now, while there are numerous officials involved in this massive VBS corruption were living large on their ill-gotten gains, the victims have a different story to tell. A VBS minority shareholder, Madambi Muvulawa, says that the sentence brings little comfort as he has not yet recouped his funds. And he joins us now via telephone line. Thank you so much for making time for us. Sir, does the sentencing mean anything to you and those who had invested money in VBS?
Yeah, this sentencing, it's what we expected, that at the end, the culprits should be brought to books, though they were still, suspects. And but we had hope that at the end they will appear before the court. It was always our plea that speed it up so that those who are innocent then can be released free, and those who are responsible can be brought to book. So I think this is now, this gives us hope that the law will take its course since they have now sentenced Mr. Modjadji, who was the leader. We hope even those who have been colliding with him will also appear before the court, and we hope that they will also plead guilty before wasting any time, because I think the investigators have got good evidence of what they have done.
Yeah. And as you personally advised people and recruited them to invest in the bank, you are on the ground with them. They must have wanted answers from you as soon as this scandal broke. What were your engagements, especially with the people that in the beginning you recruited to join the bank because you thought this is an enterprise that is established for their development?
That's what pains me most. That, I was, instrumental to recruiting people to invest money in VBS. But it was with good faith that, at the end they will benefit. And not knowing that, the other people who will come in and then rob us in the way that they did. So that's why even when this had happened, I'm always with the people, because I can never stand aside and say it is their own baby. I vowed that if they die, I die with them. If they lose, I lose with them. If they gain, I gain with them. So I'm always with the people, because I was instrumental in recruiting them as well.
Yeah, because you are on the ground, what's the impact that this has had on people? We know about others that have died with broken hearts because they died before even finding justice, before even their monies were paid back. We're talking here about pensioners, some of whom put their last cent. What has been the impact of this on their health, on their livelihood? What have you observed on the ground?
You see, most of the people that have invested in VBS, there are elderly people. And elderly people, when they invested the money, they were investing their last money that they have worked for their whole life. And now when this money doesn't come back, that's why some of them, passed away, and some of them has affected their health, and because they will never be the same as before because of this money, because they will never get younger again to accumulate this wealth that they've lost.
Yeah. What are they hoping for now?
Our hope was that, since the Reserve Bank is the one that has now appointed the liquidator, and our hope was that the liquidator will collect all the money that was owed to VBS, so that at the end of the day it can be distributed to those people who have lost their money. But our worry is that, we don't even get a feedback as to what is happening. How much is the liquidator collected, and how much is remaining? Because there are people paying. Those who have a loan with the bank, they are continuing to pay, and that money should come back, should be distributed to those people who have lost their money.
And when you make your own calculations as one of the people that invested in the bank initially, how much money are we talking here that you've lost?
You mean myself personally?
Yes.
No, I cannot reveal my bank balances. I cannot do that in public, for public.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you so much for speaking to us. That's
you're welcome.
One of the shareholders of the VBS Mutual Bank. These are people that had invested money when this bank was established, and they put in money and said, we believe in what this bank is trying to do and how it's trying to develop the community. Madambi Muvulawa saying that this sentencing, even yesterday, doesn't mean much to them because they're still waiting for money to be recouped, and for those who have lost their monies through the bank to have it paid back. We've got some WhatsApp voice notes that have come through. Let's take a listen to what some of you have had to say.
Good evening, Clement. This is Evan from Orange Farm. I believe, having watched the poor ladies really in sorrow and in regret, and the fat cats having to get away with it, I believe, strongly believe that they should go down together with this former chair. This is Evan from Orange Farm.
Hi, SABC. My name is Johannes Bosocha. I don't have a problem with the 15-year sentence. As long as they took everything that he owns, and then when he comes out of jail, that he doesn't have anything. So that they can feel the pain that the community is feeling. So, and then the politicians as well, because they are the main reason that these are happening, and then they are not being held accountable for this. Thank you.
Hello, Clement Manyatela. My name is David Ubusita Ngoma, Northwest Province, Mafikeng, Situmo Park area. I really support and to see the politicians also being held accountable for the VBS scandal. Thank you.
Hi, Clement. Well, the people who invested their money into this bank literally invested their.
Thank you so much for your WhatsApp voice notes. When we come back, we're going to speak to Dr. Matole Motshekga. We'll speak about the Balobedu royal household, which has been trying to block a new TV series about Queen Modjadji. Dr. Matole Motshekga will tell us why when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Pretoria High Court has dismissed the Balobedu family's court application to interdict MultiChoice's drama series Queen Modjadji that's supposed to be aired this coming Sunday. The Balobedu Royal Council took producer Dumaka Ndlovu to court with reasons that the Balobedu Royal Council was never consulted on this series and Queen Modjadji will be represented negatively. Dr. Matole Motshekga speaks on behalf of the royal family and he joins us tonight. Dr. Motshekga, thank you so much for making time for us. Why are you trying to block the airing of this TV series about Queen Modjadji?
Her Majesty Queen Masalano Modjadji 7 and Balobedu Royal Council made an application for an interdict to stop the airing of Queen Modjadji series because it violates the constitutionally guaranteed right of Balobedu Royal Nation. Her Majesty Queen Masalano Modjadji 7 and Balobedu Royal Council were not consulted and have not consented to the airing of that series. It is important to know that the Modjadji dynasty is a sacred or divine queenship and the custodian of the culture and religion of Balobedu Royal Nation, which are guaranteed and enforceable in terms of the Bill of Rights contained in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. On the 9th July 2023, Mr. Dumaka Ndlovu requested a meeting with me to discuss a TV drama on the history or story of the Balobedu people. He said, I quote, Mzansi Magic as part of Mnet DSTV channel is considering commissioning a drama on the subject matter and we are collecting information so that we can submit a convincing proposal and hopefully a dynamic approach at telling the story of the Balobedu and the Kilobedu language, close the quote. When Mr. Dumaka Ndlovu approached me in July 2023, he knew full well, or ought to have known, that Princess Masalano Modjadji had ascended the throne as Her Majesty Queen Masalano Modjadji 7 on the 20th January 2023, when she turned 18 in terms of the culture and customary law of Balobedu Nation.
All right.
Now,
all right, just hold on there, Dr. Motshekga, because I want this to be a dialogue. So you're saying that you got a message from the producer of this series. This is June last year. What did you do when he sent you that message?
That was at the time when her uncle and her brother were trying to dispute her legitimacy to ascend to the throne. And the timing was just wrong. So I said that I would come back to him later, but it's not the right time to
Did you send him that
proceed with
message? Because the impression that's been created is that you received the message and you didn't respond.
No, I responded and requested an engagement. Even on the 30th of May, I sent him an SMS when I said that we should negotiate because he entered into an agreement with people who did not have the authority to enter the agreement because the uncle of the queen had ceased to be a regent. So he had no status in Bolobedu to represent the queenship.
But you only texted him in May this year, Dr. Motshekga. Why did you wait the whole year? You waited until MultiChoice started advertising the show, and then you wanted now to engage with the producer who tried to talk to you already a year ago.
Because the lawyers had written to him in March suggesting that there should be an engagement. So I thought that that engagement between him and the lawyers is continuing, only to learn in April that they are going on. And that's when then I sent a text to him.
Have you watched this series? Have you seen the content of this series? Because my understanding, having looked at your court papers, is that you are concerned about the possible misrepresentation of the Balobedu culture and your heritage. Have you watched it?
You know, from all the adverts, we could gather, you look at the attire. The attire is foreign. Never in the history of Balobedu have they used the attires that they are using there. And if you look at the actors, none of them are Balobedu people, but they say they want to project the Kilobedu language, and Kilobedu language is still under discussion in Parliament. The Bible is still under translation into Kilobedu. Now, we are not sure what Kilobedu are they talking about, because that Kilobedu is still a subject of debate in Parliament and also a subject of translation. And those people don't live in Balobedu. They are not Balobedu. And how can they go and represent the people and a language they don't know?
And all of these issues could have been raised already just in June last year when the producer contacted you. And I hear you in that there was a lot going on. The timing was not right. Could you not have delegated other people to speak to the producer about this matter so that you raise some of those concerns? And why do you believe... Yes, go ahead.
Firstly, he should have reacted to the letter from the lawyers. And he didn't. And I assumed that something was going on between him and the lawyers. And I learned very late that he did not even respond to the letter. Okay.
Why do you think that the royal family needed to be consulted? Because this is a fictitious series. It's not a documentary.
It's not true. I just quoted what he said in his communication with me, that he wanted to collect information so that he can prepare a convincing proposal on the history of Balobedu. The word fiction only appears in the court papers. So it's not true that it's a fiction.
Okay, so now that they've indicated in court papers that it is fiction, do you still feel the need to object to its airing, given that it is not based necessarily on the lives of the applicants yourselves and based on a true story?
The history of Balobedu is a living and true history. And now, if the people have a true and living history and they know about it, And how do you go and turn other people's history into a fiction without their consent?
The Queen's brother and uncle, have they been in communication with the producers? Are they the ones that have signed an agreement with the production team?
The uncle signed an agreement, wrote a letter to Dumandov, giving him the authority to proceed. But he has no authority. He had no authority to do so because he's not an induna. He's not a chief or senior traditional leader. He doesn't represent the royal family. He doesn't represent the royal council. He's a nothing.
So the Queen in court papers said she wanted to see the film before it's flighted to see if it did not threaten her dignity and financial rights. What does she mean by financial rights?
Because these people are commercializing her legacy, and she's the custodian of this sacred queenship. Now, if they commercialize it, obviously they are threatening her financial interest because she also may want to commercialize it herself. And why should somebody commercialize it on her behalf?
But nothing stops her from commercializing it. She could very well, from tomorrow, start her own documentary or write her own series about the Balobedu culture. Nothing stops her from that.
No. If someone has already distorted your history and distributed it to the whole country and the whole world, when you come to do your own, you are even just causing confusion about a culture that is alive, that is straightforward.
I beg to differ, Dr. Motshekga, with due respect. I think, in fact, if there's ever a production that comes directly from the royal family and involves Queen Modjadji herself, that's the kind of production I would like to watch. There's been so many productions about King Shaka, for instance, many movies, many documentaries. If she comes with her own, people are going to give her an ear. And in fact, that has more credibility because it comes directly from the royal family.
Why put her on the defensive? Why do something that people know is wrong? Because there was no consultation, and the actors there don't come from that family and those people. So the problem is that there are distortions. The people who are acting there are not the type of people that are competent to convey or deal with this culture. Okay. And also, with respect, Mr. Dumandov was aware that the Queen is on the throne, and he went to talk to the people who don't represent her, and he knew where the Queen is, and he didn't make any attempt to get in touch with her.
Well, he says he contacted you first because you represent the Queen. So before he even went to speak to the brother of the Queen and the uncle, he says and I think this is also indicated in the court papers because your exchange in SMS was also detailed there. It's clear that he came to you first, and when you couldn't make time to meet with him, that's when he consulted other members of the family.
He knew the reasons why I was not able to come back to him, because we were involved in a court battle with people who wanted to disinherit the Queen. And now, how would I leave that court battle and come and be doing stories? So he knew why I was not able to come to him then. And he as well knew that the people he was approaching were not the rightful people to talk to.
Will you be continuing with the court challenge? You lost the urgent application this week. What's your next recourse?
We didn't lose anything. The judge said that the matter was not urgent, and it struck it off the roll. But the issues that we raised are still alive, namely that the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa guarantees the right of the culture and religion of the people.
Yeah.
So the Modjadji dynasty is a cultural and religious institution. So if you interfere with it, you violate the constitution itself.
All right, yeah. I mean, you lost the urgent application. Otherwise, if you had won, this series wouldn't be airing this coming Sunday. But thanks for making time for us, Dr. Matola Motshekga. I appreciate your time on Face the Nation tonight, and I appreciate your time for watching us at home. We'll be back on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching. Cheers.